All right, I want to look at a student argument and look at how we could formalize it and make it stronger. So, student wrote this: murder is wrong. I agree. The reason murder is wrong, is morally wrong, is because no one should have to suffer because of another person's actions. All right, two things I want to do here right off the bat. First is I want to number the premises and put the conclusion last and number it as well. Okay. Another thing I want to do is I want to eliminate the word because. The word because is always followed by a premise, which is supposed to support a conclusion. And when I'm formalizing my arguments, I want to list the premise in one statement, in one line, and list the conclusion in another one to make it clear what the inferential relationship between them is. So if I do both of those things, in this case, here's what I get. No one should have to suffer because of another person's actions. That's what followed the because. That was a premise. And therefore, the conclusion is murder is morally wrong. Now, that's all fine and good, but this isn't a valid argument yet. There's no contradiction in saying, yeah, no one should have to suffer because of another person's actions, but murder is morally right or permissible. In order to make this a formally, logically valid argument, I'm going to have to add in an unstated premise, and I'm going to use the modus ponens magic trick. So I've got some premise P, I've got a conclusion Q. I am going to create a conditional statement which says if P, then Q. Here's what that's going to give us. No one should have to suffer because of another person's actions. If no one should have to suffer because of another person's actions, then murder is morally wrong. Therefore, murder is morally wrong. Okay, right now the argument is formally valid. It's logically valid. That is, if the premises were true, and they may not be, but if the premises were true, the conclusion would have to be true. But it's kind of awkward and wordy and confusing. I feel that way, especially when I look at premise 2. Is there a way that we can simplify the idea here, especially that premise 2 idea? It's like, okay, if no one should have to suffer because of another person's actions, then murder is morally wrong. I guess the idea is that murder is an action that makes somebody suffer. Murder hurts people, in other words. That's the basic idea. Murder hurts people, right? And that's what makes it wrong. Murder is wrong because it hurts people. Let me make it about that simple. Murder makes a person suffer. If murder makes a person suffer, then it's wrong. Therefore, murder is wrong. That's what the author is trying to say. Okay, this is really clear. It's really simple. It is logically valid. It's modus ponens. But now we're in a good position to see or to ask ourselves the question, are the premises really true? Just think about this. Murder makes a person suffer. Now that seems obviously correct, but that's actually not true. I mean, there are painless ways to kill people, right? So unless you mean suffer in a broad sense, that's not just about physical pain or psychological pain, but premise 1 doesn't seem like it's true. We'll have to go into details. There's plenty of drugs that you can give people that fall asleep and never wake up. Secondly, if the premise says if murder makes a person suffer, then it's wrong. But again, is that true? To see why that premise is kind of weird, think about it this way. Let me rephrase it, premise 2, not as a conditional statement, but as a universal affirmative. Murder makes a person suffer. All actions that make people suffer are wrong. Therefore, murder is wrong. And look at that second premise. Is it true that all actions that make people suffer are wrong? I mean, going to the dentist makes me suffer, right? Or, studying philosophy might make you suffer. Is it wrong for me to teach you philosophy because it makes you suffer? I mean, so I think you can think about your own kind of counterexamples. Now, again, that doesn't, the argument's logically valid, even if the premises are false. But these are interesting objections which come to our mind when we formalize the argument. We can really see clearly what the claims are.